Yo, hello here. It's Amayo back again with another video. Still doing daily content. Back again, doing this video on guess what? War anime and manga. So basically, I've seen a few war anime and manga that I've read. So basically, I just wanted to make a review on the ones that I've read, what I think that each of them did best, and how I think that they should actually craft wars in a more realistic or a better manner. And I'm going to be talking about which ones do it best, and some of them don't even have any problems with that, but some of them have certain specific problems that aren't as apparent as in other series, which still brings it down for me, but still could be very good in my mind. So the ones I'm mostly going to be discussing are Arslan Senki, Kingdom, Berserk, Golden Kamuy, The Saga of Tanya the Evil, and Attack on Titan. Attack on Titan isn't as much of a war manga currently as for what you've seen in the anime, but in the manga it is very much so a war manga, and we've gotten to see that right as where season 4 is going to begin. So I will be talking about Attack on Titan and Berserk and Kingdom if you haven't seen them. So basically, spoilers for all the series I talk about in this thing. And also, I'm going to be talking about Golden Kamuy, but I've only seen the anime, and I believe that the third season, the first episode of that, is coming out on the day that this video is released. But I'm just going to be talking about the anime because I don't know if there's a manga. I haven't read the manga. So yeah, moving on with the actual topics of this video. So basically, I'll be talking about which one does a best job of each through 5 different criteria. The first one being time and duration, the next one being plot and story, another one being characters and how realistic the characters are, the fourth one being realistic battles, and the last one being factions and allies. So I'll just be going in order of these 5 ones that I've listed here. So the first one being time and duration. In anime, a lot of the time, we obviously see battles that take place, but then when we think about how long the battles actually take, sometimes it takes as little as just a few minutes, or it could take as much as like a few hours. Maybe with like One Piece or something, making it to be like more like 12 hours. But I've never seen anything that takes more like over a day or something like that. Or at least when you do see it, it's very uncommon and very rare. But the difference between regular anime and war anime is that in war anime, they often have longer battles that make more sense for an actual kind of battle that we've seen all throughout human history, instead of something that we've seen throughout anime history, which is obviously more unrealistic. And even if a lot more people have a perception of battle based on anime, then it doesn't necessarily mean that what they're seeing is going to be real or very true to what is actually happening and what has happened in our past as humans and our war history. And it's really nice to see that in more anime, that they have this more realistic portrayal on life, even if they can have characters that can be more anime-like and have that same kind of passion, that same kind of tenacity, and all these different things that make anime characters great. And it also depends on the war anime based on how long they actually want to have the battles go for. And you see in shows like Golden Kamuy, it also has had battles that happen within one night or one day or whatever, or sometimes that are even shorter, because Golden Kamuy is also a comedy series. And then you have examples like Arslan Senki, who has a lot more realistic depictions of what battles are like, even if they don't have that same kind of duration that is kind of more realistic to human life and an actual perspective. But also with other shows like Attack on Titan, it's still more like tactical, and they kind of have to build up forces and kind of go at it in a different way. Especially because Attack on Titan takes place in a setting that's a lot more like World War One or World War Two, where the kind of technology has already built up and it's kind of more like modern warfare that we've seen today, where you have larger weapons, nukes, and then in Attack on Titan, obviously you have Titans at your disposal, which are obviously larger weapons. And it kind of goes to show basically this just added thing that would be like any other thing in war where everyone would try to either recreate it or get their hands on it. And it's a really realistic depiction of war, even with that kind of unrealistic aspect of Titans in the story. But then, of course, there's examples like Kingdom, who also have a sort of longer duration. But in Kingdom, it's a little different because in Kingdom, it's kind of just like they have a battle like once every few months, and it's kind of just gathering forces from all across the lands. Because in Kingdom battles, it's just a slaughter fest. It's kind of just like which captain can show their might and then eventually just take out as many enemies as possible. And it's kind of just about dwindling forces and not just about actually winning the battle, but it's a different kind of winning that you don't normally see in other anime. So it just goes to show that everyone has like a different perspective, a different way that they can craft it. So I just realized I kind of talked about realistic battles and time and duration. So I'm going to be continuing on with another topic, and that topic is going to be the characters, basically. I kind of mentioned this briefly, but I wanted to go more in depth on it. And basically, you have whole bunch of different characters in all these shows. But then the Saga of Tanya the Evil is a very strange example because it's not like your typical war manga, because it also involves things like magic and such. Of course, and then of course you have your main character, who is Tanya, of course, who is this reincarnated little girl who's sort of like just this kind of eventually this crazed, battle-hungry child that is kind of just going around trying to be like this kind of commander, even if in her past life she was kind of just like this businessman that was like, I guess, a little smart. And it's a lot different than a lot of the other war manga that I've seen. And Golden Kamuy, as I mentioned, is obviously a comedy series as well, so you have like a lot more comedic moments, and it doesn't show as realistic of a depiction of what people are like once they've been through a war, because after a war a lot of people get messed up in the head. And we see this in cases not just in war anime, but in things like ReZero, Subaru, who's been through a lot of things and you kind of get to see it as his character progresses. But in shows like Kingdom, it was kind of strange for me, especially with the main character, who is Shin or Shin, depending on the translation. And basically, he is like one of the most fascinating characters for me, because he's very much so your average shonen protagonist, but he also wants to be like this general. And I feel like your shonen protagonists, they definitely have that kind of a sense of adventure, but they also like have this idea of freedom. But the thing about Shin is that he wants to become a general, and he has been learning how to rally troops and such, but he still kind of has that kind of shonen protagonist feel to him, and he still has that kind of confidence and everything else, even though he also has troops to rally. So it's really interesting to see like an example of character that we've seen in a very similar sense so many times before, but this time he's kind of a lot more mature in the way he has to deal with situations in battle. And also we've seen him grow up a lot faster, because we are seeing something that's actually based on real life, so we have to see it in increments as the story progresses, and we get to see how, as it progresses, he moves forward with his life, and he's growing up too, and he's learning how to assess battles as the story continues. So now we're moving on to factions and allies, and it really depends on the series, but in Arslan Senki, it's a lot different, because they're kind of just gathering like troops one by one, where they find like powerful or strong allies, which I feel like you see like a lot more in other anime. And even if it has this more realistic depiction on what battles can be like, it also shows you that even with a small amount of troops, you can make it similar to basically having a large amount of troops, even if you don't, because basically a battle does not always have to be about winning or fighting, but it can also be about intimidation, and they can do a strategy where like they make it appear as though there's a lot more men than there actually are. So it just goes to show that battles are different depending on the series and how they go, and every series has a different interpretation and prediction, especially based on the region that the battles are based on. And Arslan Senki is more European based, and then Kingdom is most obviously based on China in 240s BCE. So it just goes to show, based on the series, that you can have a completely different perspective on what's happening and how battles go. And lastly, for the section on plot and story, I wanted to talk about how different manga have this kind of perception on how they bring in royalty and like a lot of other factions to bring into play. And basically in a show like Kingdom, it's not just based on the battles, but the king obviously has a very big part in the story, and we get to see how he evolves with the other people in his court, and you kind of get to see not just battles, but a lot of political battles as well. And in a show like Berserk, it's something completely different, because in Berserk, then you obviously have battles, and at the beginning it was a much more conventional war manga where you had two factions or however many factions fighting back and forth. But after the eclipse, you obviously get to see more of these monster-like creatures, and then the plot develops as Guts develops, and basically you get to see Guts' evolution, and that's more what the story is like after the eclipse versus before, when you had more troops and everyone just trying to fight each other, like a more stereotypical war manga that you probably have seen before. And yeah, there were a few more sections that I could have talked about for a much longer time, but I don't want to make my videos too long, so that's pretty much it. I don't remember which number video this was, but please leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. And I'm saying it again, I've been saying this for like 3 days, but okay, so if you are my 10th subscriber, leave a comment, and I will do a video on pretty much anything you want, okay?